With Ford and Kavanaugh set to testify, we're turning to Dr. Gina Nunez-Mchiri with UTEP for a better understanding about what this all means. Thanks for being here. So I want to start with Anita Hill. She faced senators in 1991 for sexual harassment claims against Clarence Thomas. He was then a Supreme Court nominee, as Kavanaugh is today. We've heard former Vice President Joe Biden express some regret for how she was questioned. So given that, what do you think will happen tomorrow?
So I think it's important to listen to women. I think it's important to find out the details. I know a lot of people are concerned about false allegations, but it takes a lot of courage to speak up and say, this happened to me. Women have to think twice before they speak up because of the social stigma, the shame, and the impact that this has on their careers. So it's not easy to speak up and say, this happened to me. Yes, it happened many years ago, but nonetheless, it happened. And now we have Deborah Ramirez step up, and now we have Julie Swetnick step up. So we have 3 people who are willing to testify and who have secured legal counsel to be able to do it in a way that doesn't try to disqualify their character. But nonetheless, to go on a stand and testify, it takes a lot of courage. So I think we need to pay attention to what these women have to say.
Okay, doctor, so you're seeing all this play out with us. And just a few hours ago, President Trump saying that this is all a ploy by Democrats, and he says it's, quote, disgraceful. Do you think much has changed in the last 20 years?
I think a lot has changed. And I think we have to look at many events that have contributed to this openness, taking down the shame of being a victim to a survivor. And as more women have entered these male-dominated fields, they turn around, they know they're no longer alone. And when we begin to listen to them, other women have heard their testimonies and say, you know, this happened to me too, but I was so afraid of losing my job or jeopardizing my career. There's a lot that contributes to the silencing of women who've experienced violence. There's a lot that they have to lose. So women coming forward is changing, women being listened to, women with degrees, attorneys. These are women that are credible professionals, whether they have an education or not. When someone says, I was accosted as a young woman, as a professional in the setting, we need to pay attention to what settings create the spaces for men to create violence, to touch women, to make them feel uncomfortable and think it's okay to do so.
Okay, so as you mentioned, there's already 3 women that have come forward, but some senators say there's nothing that can be said tomorrow that will change their minds. I want to read you a quote from Senator Lindsey Graham. He says, "What am I supposed to do? Go ahead and ruin this guy's life based on an accusation? I'm just being honest. Unless there's something more, no, I'm not going to ruin Judge Kavanaugh's life over this. But she should come forward. She should have her say. She will be respectfully treated." What do you think about that?
I think how interesting that men are worried about ruining men's life. But the men who accuse women or sexually harass women don't worry about the impacts they're going to have on women for the rest of their lives. The psychological trauma, the impact, the emotional trauma that women have to carry when they're walking around in silence, having experienced so much violence. How come nobody's thinking about the lives of women who have already been damaged and the careers that have been jeopardized? Who's thinking about them? How is it that men's future careers are more important to men? When will men begin to listen and believe women when they said something has happened to me? You need to listen to the circumstances and actually give the opportunity for the women to expose the situation, provide the details, describe the settings, and listen to them, listen to them. We need to start listening to our children. We need to start listening to our coworkers and pay attention and be vigilant, because this is happening a lot more than we care to think and give women credit for.
And finally, women who are watching all this unfold at home, hearing from President Trump, hearing from the different senators, what message does this all send to them?
I think it's telling us that, you know, these are men in power, protecting men in power. And we have to stay vigilant and we have to stay vocal. And I hope that tomorrow's testimony will not be the last of many testimonies. We have to hold people in high offices accountable. Once they're appointed to the Supreme Court, it's very difficult to take them out. And we have to be able to be vigilant as a public, as members of a citizenship, to hold our elected officials and our appointed officials accountable for their actions.
Okay, Dr. Nunez-Mchiri, Gina Mchiri, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.